You're with John Gibson.
And I'm with Senator Rand Paul, calling in directly from the Senate cloakroom. Senator Paul, welcome back to the program. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
So, can I just ask you about your drone column in the drone memo column in the New York Times? I don't understand how there could be any justification for the president to withhold these memos that David Barron wrote when the liberals pressed for John Yu's waterboarding memos, and they got them.
Yeah, can you imagine how the liberals would be up in arms if this were a Republican president refusing to provide this justification, not for something short of death, but we're now actually talking about the ultimate punishment, death, and to not show the legal justification. And see, here's my point, John, is this is a debatable point, but it's an important point, and it ought to be decided really by the Supreme Court or in open public debate. It shouldn't be decided in secret.
You mean whether or not someone can or should be droned?
Yeah, because it's American citizens. Now, the thing is I want to be clear, I'm not talking about people actively in battle, people shooting at us. There is no due process and there is no protection for you. If you're going to shoot at Americans, you can be killed. That just is the way war goes. But it is a little more debatable if you have an American overseas, sympathizes with the enemy, probably is a traitor, and he's on a computer either organizing in a house somewhere or he's fomenting violence by encouraging people to join this radical jihad. That can be that they're a traitor, that they're treasonous, and do deserve the death penalty. What I would do to give this at least the imprimatur of a court is I would accuse them of treason. If they don't show up, I would try them, I would appoint an attorney, and then I would try to convict them of treason when the penalty is death. But if you don't do that, you can see the slippery slope that could occur from having someone just accused by somebody, and then they're killed, but nobody really knows whether that accusation is accurate or not.
Well, but you're saying a trial in absentia.
If you have to. You give somebody a chance to come home, a reasonable chance. But most of these people, see, I don't question that al-Awlaki was a traitor, but I think you give him a chance, he doesn't come home, you try him. And then this wasn't something that had to be done in a 24-hour period. I think he was on a kill list for a year. So, if someone's invading, that's an imminent threat, and there obviously are exceptions to all of these rules. But I think that having a precedent where we can kill an American citizen, where one branch of government in secret decides that they need to be killed, that's a recipe for the potential for horrific abuse. And I'm not saying there has been that abuse. I'm just worried about the day we elect a president who decides, my criteria for killing someone overseas is, much looser than what most of us would accept.
You're not. We're not back in the zone where we're talking about, drone striking someone in the United States. That's not the issue.
We're talking about it outside the United States, but we are talking about non-combatants in the sense that we're talking about people not actively engaged in a battlefield. So, for example, if you're an American and you go to Afghanistan and you're on the other side of the mountain, or you're a sniper shooting at Americans, and you're an American traitor, by all means you can be killed with no due process. You don't get a lawyer. But let's say you're visiting in Paris and you're on a computer and you're an ally of al-Qaeda. Do we kill you sitting in Paris somewhere, or sitting in Benghazi, or where have you around the world? Should there not be some kind of process that allows you to say, hey, guys, no, I was just over there visiting. I'm not part of al-Qaeda, and I'm coming home for my trial. So, I think that you have to have some kind of process, or there is a risk in secret of deciding who gets to kill, that there could be real problems.
Well, here's the part I don't understand about your pressing to get David Barron's memos on this question is, under what basis are they saying, is the administration, the president, saying you can't have them when his immediate predecessor, George W. Bush, had to cough up the waterboarding memos from John Yoo?
Well, and it makes it even worse. An appellate court has already ruled against this president and says he has to release them. So right now, they are in defiance of an appellate court order that says that they have to release them to the public. And the thing is I've read these memos, if there's a secret in them, I was unaware of it. But if there are secrets in them, mark the secrets out. If they list a location or an agent's name or somebody's name that shouldn't be in public, by all means mark it out. But the discussion over whether or not it's constitutional to kill somebody with only an accusation in secret and without a trial, an American citizen, that ought to be a debate. And you can have an honest opinion on either side of it, but this should be an open public debate in Congress or in the Supreme Court, but in a public venue. We should not decide in secret what the criteria are for killing Americans.
Well, you've seen the memo. Does it make sense to you? Is it a reasonable argument?
Well, I'm not allowed to tell you what's in it, but I can tell you what's not in it. There is no legal justification in it for killing American citizens overseas not involved in combat. And the reason I think I can tell you that without revealing a secret is that there is no such precedent. The Supreme Court has never heard a case. The appellate court has never heard a case. We've heard the case of American citizens engaged in combat, actually on a battlefield, drugged from a battlefield, and the Supreme Court said they had some form of due process, but not exactly the same that you and I would have. But they never addressed, and no public court has ever addressed whether or not someone who is not engaged in combat, who is away from combat, but still may be a traitor and still may be an operative in a terrorist organization, can you kill them? So it is a debate. It is something that has never been decided. So Barron's a lawyer, and he writes the justification for this killing, but I can tell you without revealing any secrets, he cannot be listing a precedent because no such precedent occurs, and that's why, really, rather than have this decided in secret, I would much rather have it decided in public, but I can't be for a nominee or vote yes on a nominee who was so careless about the Constitution that he said, Mr. President, go ahead and kill him. Here's why I think it is justifiable, even though it's never been debated or discussed.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Yes, only one, John.
All right, this is just this one. I'm sure you're aware of the brouhaha around the IRS that it's hearings going on in the House. We now know there's emails from one of your colleagues in the Senate, Carl Levin, pressing the IRS to, do whatever they were going to do to these Tea Party groups. I know that members of Congress, both senators and representatives, write letters occasionally. Did he do anything that was unusual or improper?
I think it's really tricky on what's ethical and unethical, and without knowing the rules and without being an expert, I don't want to comment on that. But I do want to say that a government that punishes the people who lose in an election is the kind of government that scares me, and I'm very, very concerned that the IRS appears to have been used in a partisan manner. And this is something that I don't care whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, if you lose an election or if you contribute to certain candidates, you don't want to think that the full force and bully nature of government's going to come after you. And I think that's what happened. I think they used the IRS as a tool to try to suppress speech and to try to suppress dissent and to punish their enemies. And this is, to me, completely unacceptable.
Senator Rand Paul, I appreciate you coming on. I thank you for taking the time. I know you're in the cloakroom, and I can see on C-SPAN there's some business on the floor, so thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John.